Hi everyone, welcome to SportsKhabri, Kirisari and Arun Foot. With me are Arnav and Hiren. Saying that after a long time feels good. But yeah, guys, first of all, before we dive into the football, how are you doing? How are you doing, Arnav? How are you doing, Hiren?
Good. Good evening, everyone. I'm fine, and hope everybody else who's listening and watching is fine as well.
Hiren, how are you doing?
I am also very well, and I hope Rahul, you also doing great. After a long time, we three are meeting again and discussing Indian football. So that's it's a good to be back.
Yeah, and excited for this because usually when we sort of did the lives, every day we spoke about it, and I was sort of in the loop with most things. I'm sure you guys have a lot to talk about. I mean, when it comes to this, there must have been a lot of things that have gone on in the background for Manolo Màrquez to finally be appointed as India men's national team coach. So I know what is the story? How did this happen? And of course, Manolo Màrquez is now at the helm. Yeah, I actually have a lot of questions, but let me just start with this. How did it happen? Were there a few names in the end, and then finally we went with Manolo? Or what was the story?
It's not very clear, to be very honest, how it all happened because when it became clear that Igor is not going to stay and a new coach would be looked for and searched for and would be appointed, the situation at the time was that the AFF came out with a sort of an extended document with the requirements that you should fulfill to be able to apply for the job. And then the AFF had an open process. 291 coaches applied, or let's put it this way: certain agents also applied in the name of certain coaches. From my understanding, certain coaches never applied, but their names were put forward by agents. And it looked like the AFF would then try and choose the best 5, maybe 10, and then and yeah, the process. I don't know. Somewhere the process got lost. Suddenly there was, they cut it down to 17. From the 17, they cut it down to 3, and the final 3 were Manolo Màrquez, Habas, and Sanjay Sen.
Okay.
The technical committee was not involved. I don't know if the so-called special committee was involved. So there's this lack of clarity in the background what really happened. There were some talks with FC Goa for a while about this, supposedly, and then the FC Goa and the AFF came to an understanding that both sides are fine, that the coach could be, coaching an ISL team, and on the other side could be coaching the national team. And then, yeah, suddenly on Saturday at the Exco, it was announced, "Arey, hum logo ka coach mil gaya. We have a coach. Let's take him."
Okay.
So that's my concern in this whole process, because, and I've received quite a few messages from international coaches. Some of them, were asking me. Some of them were asking me actually to lobby for them, or other things which I said I'm not going to do, because in this current scenario, it doesn't make sense. There were some very good names who are willing to even come with lower budgets to India. But again, the international coaches are asking the question is, why did you then initiate the process? Why didn't you just say, listen, we've got 5 to 7 coaches we're looking at, and this is the one we've chosen?
Okay.
Right? That's the question which remains in my head. Yeah, sorry.
And I know I mean, I've got some questions. What happens to FC Goa now? That was the first thing that popped up in my head. And what is the situation there?
He's the coach of FC Goa. He is first the coach of FC Goa, and parallel is the coach of the national team. He is, as Marcus has reported in today's Times of India, 3 of his coaching staff at FC Goa will join him in the national team. Mahesh Gawli remains, so that's a good bridge. I think Mahesh, first of all, is a good coach, and secondly, Mahesh knows the national team inside out and its workings, its strengths, its weaknesses. International football, I think that's an important one. And then hopefully Manolo Màrquez can settle in quickly, doesn't fall into the trap of, I know these players from Hyderabad, I know these players from Goa, that's why I'm going to pick XYZ. Because that question will crop up. Yeah. First question is, I already know that one player's name will be directly discussed if he's going to pick, and he's going to get picked, and that's Nikhil Pujari. Right?
Okay.
So when Nikhil Pujari gets picked, they'll say, "Arey, he's your ex-player from Hyderabad." Right? Or let's say if Ashish Rai gets picked, then say, "Arey, Ashish Rai you're picking because he used to be." So therefore, this trap you will never be able to get out of.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that I feel he falls into.
And I remember you bringing this up well before. I remember when we were discussing this as well. I think I know you said you didn't want an ISL coach to sort of come in and you wanted a fresh face. But Hiren, like the question again to me is, again I don't know. I haven't seen this happen too often. Actually, I've not come across scenarios where the national team coach is a coach of a club as well. Just personally, I don't remember too many instances. Are you confident that he'll be able to do sort of handle both tasks because it comes in with its own challenges?
Definitely, that is the biggest challenge for Manolo Màrquez. I think as in this first year of the his coaching stint at the national team, because in the modern football, as you know, the pressure is there. The lot of matches past में होते थे and recent में and I think particularly Indian national team का head coach होना and अगर आप कोई बाकी country का होना, every country has their own challenges and I think in that sense it's a tough task to you can say कि manage both the club and country. But एक थोड़ा सा मैं बोलूंगा कि उनको थोड़ा सा मे बी आई थिंक प्रेशर वाइज थोड़ा सा कम इस सेंस में होगा कि सितंबर अक्टूबर नवंबर विंडो में कोई आपका क्वालिफाइंग वाला मैच नहीं है. इट्स जस्ट यू कैन से कि फ्रेंडलीज. अदरवाइज तो आई थिंक इट विल बी रियली रियली टफ बिकॉज वहां पे फिर आपका रिजल्ट का भी एक्सपेक्टेशन एक आ जाता है. अगर मान लीजिए कि एशियन कप क्वालिफायर्स होते हैं तो यू हैव टू क्वालिफाई. इट्स यू कैन से कि इन इज कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आई थिंक आल्सो देयर इज ए वन क्लॉज कि अगर आप एशियन कप क्वालिफाई करवाते हो तभी आपका कॉन्ट्रैक्ट भी एक्सटेंड होगा. सो ये नहीं है, ये आई थिंक उसके लिए थोड़ा सा मेरे को लगता है कि इस डाउन होगा. बट आई थिंक इट विल बी अ टफ टास्क टू स्विचिंग बिटवीन क्लब एंड कंट्री. एंड जो सर ने बोला कि 3 उनके जो कोचिंग स्टाफ है वो उन्होंने यहाँ पे वो फिर से रिटेन किए. मतलब वो आई थिंक समझ में भी आता है क्योंकि अगर आप नेशनल टीम के लिए दूसरा कोचिंग स्टाफ लेके आओगे सो आई थिंक उसी में आपको मतलब क्या बोलते हैं अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिठाने में आई थिंक ज्यादा दिक्कतें आएंगी एंड एवरीथिंग that kind of situation happen. So first year would be a tough for him and if he deliver result particularly Asian Cup qualifiers then I think next year से तो वो full time होंगे. So let's see how he is going to manage because आपको कैंप भी ज्यादा नहीं मिलेगा सितंबर में भी. आई थिंक मैक्सिमम 1 वीक से ज्यादा तो मेरे को नहीं लगता कि ना तो सितंबर में मिलेगा ना अक्टूबर में मिलेगा ना दिसंबर में सॉरी नवंबर में मिलेगा एंड मार्च में भी आई डोंट थिंक सो क्योंकि आईएसएल भी अब आपका मई अप्रैल एंड या फिर मई तक चलने वाला है. सो आपको उस सेंस में भी ज्यादा मतलब क्या बोलते कि ट्रेनिंग के लिए टाइम भी नहीं मिलने वाला. सो ये चैलेंजेस है. लेट्स सी हाउ इज गोइंग टू ओवरकम एंड ही इज आल्सो नो डाउट ही इज अ 20-year कोचिंग करियर at the club level. So he is also first time coaching any country. So that's also has their different challenges. I don't सी कि भाई वो कैपेबल नहीं है ऐसा मैं नहीं बोलूंगा बट आई थिंक नेशनल टीम को मैनेज करना थोड़ा सा तो मतलब आप बोलेंगे कंपैरेटिवली क्लब आई थिंक देयर आर ए डिफरेंट सेट ऑफ चैलेंजेस. तो वो भी किस तरह से वो हैंडल करते हैं आई थिंक दोज विल बी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग टू सी.
Anuba, have you come across situations, at least in Asia, where this has happened? As in, there's a manager who's taking charge of the national team and he's managing a sort of local club there, probably in the top tier, and has been successful. Have there been instances?
I have myself worked in the Indian national team with 2 coaches who worked as a club coach and as the India coach. Sukhvinder Singh was coach of JCT when he was coaching the national team. So Sukhi was again different times, and again you were able to play around with the schedule a little bit here and there. And of course Sukhi, of course, yes, was the coach when India beat the UAE on the 4th of April. 8th of April 2001 at the Kantirava. So therefore, you know, that is one of the biggest Indian wins ever. When you look at rankings, we were 124 as we are today, and the UAE was 64th in the FIFA rankings. But again, yes, you saw at that time a lot of players from JCT getting into the teams, or even players moving to JCT to play for the national team. Right. And then in 2011, Armando Colasso became the coach. I remember we went on a trip to the Caribbean, and half of the team was Dempo. So that is something which my thing is. Of course, Dempo were the best club at that time, and again, there were most of the players deserved to be in that squad. Not everyone deserved to be there. So that is a problem that I see. That's why I said I want someone new to come in. And I think the good example was last season, Peter Kratky coming into this league with no knowledge, limited knowledge about the system or players and whatever, and did his stuff. So therefore, for me, For me, that's going to be the question that Manolo now has to answer, and I'm sure it is. And again, even if he's not doing it on purpose, he will automatically pick players who are either with FC Goa or ex-players at Hyderabad FC, because those are the players that he's seen day in, day out in training as well. He knows those players, right? So if he has the option of picking an unknown entity or a player he's worked with, he will go with the player, because I think he's not a Luis de la Fuente, who has a certain way of playing, but it's attacking minded. It's a free flowing game. Manolo, for a Spanish coach, is very, very reserved. He, like Habas, are very controlled. Their teams will play very, except of course if you have a Victor Rodriguez on fire. Like last season, I think we did a post match after that Mohun Bagan game where Goa won and Victor Rodriguez got injured. That was most probably the exception, but otherwise his teams are very controlled. So from that perspective, I feel it's good because he's pragmatic in his approach. But my concern is, and if you remember, we've spoken about it a few number of times, that I feel towards after these guys got injured, Victor Rodriguez and Sandesh Jingan, it became like an ego much like tone where he said, "Bhai, this guy's injured, that guy's injured. I have a problem with this, that problem." So therefore, I am not 100% sure what to expect. That's my concern, because again, and with the whole process, I'm not 100% sure. I feel that a lot of fans are not happy with this appointment. That's my feeling. I don't know what Hiren is getting for a feedback, but when I've been doing my lives in the last couple of days, my feeling was that a lot of fans are not really happy with this appointment. Manolo Màrquez, Igor Stimac, our friend, is already saying rigid system. So therefore, that's a scenario where we find ourselves, and therefore, and also, why is he be given such a long contract? Normally my logic would have been give him a contract until the end of the AFC Asian Cup qualifiers. And if you qualify for the Asian Cup, your contract gets extended till the AFC Asian Cup 2027. So there are a lot of these questions which, again, nobody's asking, or even, there's no accountability, there's no transparency in the process, in how these decisions are being made. That is my concerning point with the AFF at the moment. We've got so many issues and problems around the AFF. And the national team has been a weak point over the last 12 months. I know, Rahul, and you and I had spoken last year while I was in Bangalore about these things. There's that, everything. And sadly, I have to say, a lot of things that I feared have become true.
Yeah. And I know you were talking about the fans' perspective. At least for me, I think right now, I'm more or less am a fan. And I was very confused by the decision, especially because he's still in charge of Goa. And like you said, I don't think it's a thing where you're doing it on purpose. You're not consciously doing it, but you're going to just want to pick players that you know. I think that's there everywhere in the world, right? You probably choose people that you already know and you worked with. It's just, I think, in every sphere of life. And Hiren, like, are we risking sort of the Indian club system to get faulted here? Because a lot of players might want to just flock to Goa now so that they get picked for the national team. Do you think that's a risk that we have now?
आई थिंक डेफिनेटली वो एक कंसर्निंग पॉइंट है. एंड आपने जैसे बोला कि अगर उनका इंटेंशन भी नहीं होगा बट सबकॉन्शियसली वो आपका डिसीजन उस फेवर में जाता है, वो तो आई थिंक नेक्स्ट उनकी सितंबर अक्टूबर नवंबर वाली विंडो में जो उनकी स्क्वाड सिलेक्शन होगी उससे ज्यादा हम बेटर आइडिया लगा पाएंगे कि किस तरह से उनका सिलेक्शन प्रोसेस किस तरह से आगे बढ़ रहे. एक चीज मैं ये बोलूंगा कि एक साल के लिए ये अरेंजमेंट है. सो आई थिंक प्लेयरों का ज्यादा मतलब गोवा की तरफ जाना और वो सब होना, आई थिंक वो मेरे को उतना ज्यादा, क्योंकि इसके बाद एक जनवरी ट्रांसफर वाली विंडो रहेगी तो उसके बाद आपके पास वो ऑप्शन तो नहीं है. सो आई थिंक प्लेयरों का मेरे को नहीं लगेगा. बट ऑब्वियसली एक चीज ये हो सकती है कि भाई उनको इम्प्रेस करने के लिए एफसी गोवा के सामने मतलब प्लेयर ज्यादा मतलब क्या बोलते वो एक और मोटिवेशन के साथ आए कि हाँ भाई अगर यहाँ पे हमने अच्छा कर दिया देन वी विल बी डेफिनेटली इन दी कोच आईज we will be seen. So ये वाली मैं चीज जरूर देखता हूँ. And I think ईशान भाई जो बोल रहे कि if we qualify for Asian Cup his contract gets extension even further, but why we are expected to qualify each edition, right? Expectation
No.
हर edition
Hiren, his contract is still mid 2027, independent of if we qualify for Asian Cup or not. But the Asian Cup is in January 27. So my point is the contract originally should have been until the end of the qualifiers. And then if you qualify, and I'm saying, I know Ishan are we expected to qualify for each edition? If I see the last 12 months, I would say no. Sadly, I'll have to say no, because for us to qualify now is an uphill task.
I know,
In,
but
Ja- in
shouldn't that be the
January,
standard? Shouldn't that just be the standard that, like, I know, I
ob- o-
understand that realistically, probably we're not as, I mean, we're probably, it's not going to be that easy, but doesn't that set a sort of benchmark saying, you know what, no matter what, this is what you have to deliver this much, at least, like it's a minimum.
Yeah, but you saw what our ex-coach did, na? Are, this is not important. The next thing is important. This is not important. Next thing is, again, yes, the benchmark, very right. What is the benchmark? What are we trying to achieve? And to me, is Asian Cup should be our standard. But if I look at the last 12 months, or I look at even if I look at 2024, do you see this Indian team qualifying for the Asian Cup? Just this year, last 6-7 months, we've been pathetic. Let's be honest about that, right? And that is my concern. We were, even in with all the problems we had a chance till the last match day theoretically to get to the to the third round, and then we would have qualified.
Yeah,
that is my concern. And now 6 out of 24, are we going to be in pot 1? Then we are lucky. But no, I don't think we're lucky, because we did that manipulation last time around to get into pot 2. Yeah. And it didn't help. We got Kuwait. We were in an easy group and it didn't work.
If both of you had to describe this appointment in one word, how would you describe it? I think it's interesting question, Anurag. Guys, any words? Hiren, one word if you had to describe this appointment. For me, it's confusing.
I would say, I would say it's a safe choice for AFF in all the aspect. अगर आप देखें, so I think fans से भी जैसे बोला कि fans में भी I think 60-70% at the moment are, you can see, positive. Financially भी उनके लिए positive है. So I would say it's a safe choice. अगर one word में अगर मैं बोलूँगा तो I would say safe choice.
Shady is Manolo.
I would put if it's one word, I would say how.
Okay. The process,
yeah. I mean, the how is, see, the process also defines how an organization operates and works. And this AFF, especially Akshata has been discussing this on regard to the women's team, how Chauba Devi has gotten the job. And you realize how we failed. I mean, I am in this coaches and managers group where people are saying, an Indian should have been appointed. Where these Indian coaches and managers don't realize is like, guys, what is the standard? What are you producing? I've been asking this question on my show now for the last few weeks. If our standard was so good, whatever you're producing, why are we at the level we are in? Right? At the end of the day, at youth level, the Indian coaches are producing the players. At the top, the coaches are just giving finishing touches. These are the questions that need to be asked. It's not just, we can ask the AFF every question, but I think the system needs to be asked. Everybody needs to be asked questions. What is your contribution to the success of Indian football?
Yeah. Yep. And now that it has happened, Hiren, what can we expect from Manolo Màrquez?
देखिए एज ए इंडिविजुअल आई थिंक कोच वाइज तो मतलब लेट्स सी जैसे सर ने बोला सिस्टम का भी सपोर्ट होना जरूरी है किसी भी कोच का सक्सेसफुल होने के लिए एंड पर्टिकुलरली एट द नेशनल लेवल बट विद द current quality of the player and seeing the Manolo Màrquez experience in the Indian football system with Hyderabad FC and FC Goa, I am expecting he might do better job than he goes to match. Result wise, maybe let's see, let's wait and watch. No doubt, the bare minimum thing is obviously to qualify into the Asian Cup. If we don't, then I think we should be again bringing a new coach, no doubt about that. But I think the way you can say work in the Indian football and some of the players you can say you can say under him, I think in recent years developed. I think I have a feeling कि at least starting में तो मेरे को लगता है कि better result या फिर better तरीके से शुरुआत होगी, but उसके बाद अब किस तरह से आगे चीजें यहाँ पे unfold होती है, because Igor Stimac के अंदर भी हमने देखा था कि first 6 month was brilliant. यू कैन से कि और यहाँ पे एक अच्छी पॉजिटिव स्टार दिखी थी कि भाई आपने कतार के सामने ड्रॉ कर दिया और वो सब किया, बट लेट्स सी आफ्टर दैट किस तरह से यहाँ पे वो हैंडल करते हैं. तो एज ए कोच वाइज आई थिंक मेरे को लगता है कि ही विल डू गुड, बट बाकी चीजों का भी उनको सपोर्ट मिलना पड़ेगा. अकेले बंदे से तो नहीं होगा. मतलब टीम का एटमोस्फेयर, वन ऑफ द थिंग, डिसिप्लिन, हाउ प्लेयर्स इज गोइंग टू यू कैन से प्ले एज अ टीम, एएफएफ की ओर से कैसा सपोर्ट रहेगा इन एवरीथिंग. सो ये सारी चीजें भी आई थिंक काफी इम्पोर्टेंट रोल प्ले करेगी to his success or failure.
Yep. There's also a comment saying that Manolo is a safe option. Anwar, you think, and is there an element where the sort of salary that you need to pay to somebody like a Manolo who's already working as an ISL manager would be far lesser than a new coach who's coming in who doesn't have another job? Is that an element as well? I know that it's a very cheap option.
It's first of all, the money is a matter in the AFF. I think that has to be openly said. I think the federation has sort of exploded in the last few years in regard to its costs, but has not gotten 1 rupee more into the system, rather gotten less money. The government support has gone back. We don't know what is going to happen with the Reliance FSDL. And that's the main thing. And again, and Manolo is a safe option in the sense of that you know what you're going to get, right? He's there. If my understanding is right, maybe the AFF is not even going to pay him a penny for the first year, right? so if that's the case, then you're saving quite a bit of money in the first year. So therefore, but again, to me is, do I want a safe option? Do I want a cheap option? No, I want the best possible option. And then my job is also as the federation to find means and ways of how do I generate money to be able to afford such a coach, right? There have been some great names which have not been discussed in the public domain who have applied, really top class coaches, where I think, it would have galvanized Indian football if such a manager had come.
I know you want to throw some. You want to share some.
No, I've not done that over the last few days, and I will not do that. I've been in touch with some of them. They've been in touch with me. I'm not going to throw out names because these are managers who are even attached to other national teams or federations, and they still thought India's an interesting one, and that's also, it contradicts the point that Igor Stimac has. Nobody wants to apply for the job, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, this also explains that, yes, with all the problems, despite people see India as an interesting job, an interesting challenge, a lot of people see this as a real challenge. I mean, the final frontier of world football sort of is India. And if you are able to change that, you'll be part of history and in the history books. But again, we've gone, again, Manolo is a good coach, is a safe bet. But yeah, he lacks, to me, international experience. And I think that's something... to me is very, very clear that he doesn't have that experience at international level. And international football and club football, out of own experience, are two pairs. It's a left boot and your right boot. It's totally different.
I was asking, so can you tell us the type of profiles that applied? Top professionals or no?
Yeah, top level guys. Yeah.
That's to answer that, Agnev. Anurag's asking, how to describe the appointment? Is it something to do with his CV?
No, the how is how did this appointment come about? In the morning of the Exco, there is an interview with the acting Secretary General of the Federation, who says we have 20 CVs which were shortlisted. We're looking at them, and then we will talk to them, and then we will decide. I know from multiple sources, that there was a list of 17 coaches. 3 were put on a final list, which is known. Habas, Sanjay Sen, and Manolo. And I know that you spoke with one of the three coaches.
Okay.
So how does the process work? That's my how. That's the process, right? Your process. Then you don't need to do a process. Then approach And I've also heard Manolo. Someone has told me even that Manolo was approached by the AFF. He didn't approach the AFF. That needs to be clarified. That would be an interesting one as well, because then the whole process wasn't needed. Then directly go for him. I don't have a problem with the AFF saying, you know what, we want to go out and bring in Manolo. Let's do this. It's fine. But then don't do this process of creating that long document, putting out social media posts, ads. You put even you have to put out a LinkedIn ad, right? Which is a professional work environment. So don't do that then.
And now again, just to have it clear, the AFF did not speak to any other coach apart from Manolo Màrquez during this process.
They've written to them. I think they've written to those 17 if they're available. But it seems like, from my understanding, is that the real discussion was with FC Goa if they would be willing to share their manager, and then the two sides decided on doing it, and then it was done, and that was presented to the Exco. The question to me is also who has been involved in the process, because Baichung has clearly said that the technical committee was not involved in the process, and IM Vijayan also didn't attend physically. And IM Vijayan has not come out with anything. So therefore, there are a lot of questions that the AFF needs to answer about this appointment and how. Not about the appointment, but how this appointment came about.
Yep. Ishan's asking about prerequisites listed by the AFF for the job. Guys, could you shed some light on this? Hiren, does Manolo fulfill the conditions?
Prerequisite में तो I think जो main था वो तो 10 to 15 years I think experience वाला था at the highest club level or you can say कि at the international level. तो उसमें मनोलो का अगर आप करियर देखें तो उसने आई थिंक लोअर लेवल से ही स्टार्ट किया है. उन्होंने आई थिंक यूथ लेवल पे भी कोच टीमों को कोच किया हुआ है. सो एक्सपीरियंस वाइज तो पूरा अगर उनका ओवरऑल एक्सपीरियंस देखें तो आई थिंक 15-20 साल का है. बाकी तो आई थिंक इंडियन फुटबॉल को जानता है. अदर देन तो मतलब उसमें से काफी सारी चीजें भी जो उन्होंने प्रीरिक्विजिट जो बोला था उसमें से उन्होंने इग्नोर भी की है वो कि भाई ऑब्वियसली चीज है जो मतलब आपके जिस सर ने बोला कि आपके एक्टिंग जनरल सेक्रेटरी ने उस अपॉइंटमेंट के एक दिन पहले बोला था कि वी विल डेफिनेटली फॉर अस इंटरनेशनल कोच यू कैन से कि इंटरनेशनल कंट्री को जिसने कोच किया हो ऐसा कोच लाना या फिर उसको कंसिडर करना इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. उन्होंने ऐसा बोला था कि वो अगर किसी कोच के पास एक्सपीरियंस है नेशनल टीम को मैनेज करने का तो एक काफी इंपॉर्टेंट कंसिडरेशन है. तो उसको तो यहाँ पे नहीं फॉलो किया गया. तो देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो उन्होंने मतलब जो जॉब रिक्वायरमेंट में बोला था एंड आगे जो प्रोसेस फॉलो हुआ जैसे सर ने बोला कि आपको अगर क्योंकि ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि भाई आपने लास्ट 2 दिन में ही एफसी गोवा से सारी चीजें सॉर्ट आउट की है. जैसे ने बोला कि आपने उनको अप्रोच किया होगा डिस्कशन एक वीक से एटलीस्ट चल रही हो then why this you can say कि आपने 291 कोचेस का एप्लीकेशन मंगवाया. अगर आपको पहले से ही वो करना था आप सीधा ही जैसे ईगो स्टीमेट को सेट किया उसके बाद आप एफसी गोवा से डिस्कस करते हैं एंड नया कोच आप अनाउंसमेंट करते हैं. सिंपल सा आपके लिए वो चीज था. उसमें किसी ने बोला तो नहीं था कि आपको कोचेस का वो मंगवाना चाहिए. सो उन्होंने वो कोशिश की कि हम यहाँ पे ट्रांसपेरेंट तरीके से सारी चीजें करते हैं प्रोफेशनल तरीके से. बट एएफएफ एंड ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड प्रोफेशनलिज्म आई थिंक दे डोंट गो इन हैंड इन हैंड. दे ऑलवेज गो इन ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन. सो आई थिंक वो आई थिंक मेरे को लगता है कि उनका मोटिव था. बाकी आई थिंक रिक्वेजिशन भाई जिसको उन्होंने डिसाइड ही कर लिया मनोलो मार्केस को लाना है तो फिर तो जो जॉब रिक्वायरमेंट में जो भी बोला सिंपल सी बात है उसका कोई फिर फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
Yeah, and I think no, that's an important point. Like if you wanted to go for Manolo Màrquez, you could have done that right after sacking Igor Stimac, and the process would have been very quick. But the fact that they took so long to appoint Manolo does.
My other issue is that Manolo has experience. He has 2 long stints in his over 20-year-old coaching career. One was at Pratt in 2003 to 2006, and then at Hyderabad FC for 3 years. Otherwise, he was a journeyman. And the 2 jobs before coming to Hyderabad, in Thailand, he coached 1 match. In Croatia, I think he coached 4 or 5. No, was it? Yeah, 4 or 5, I think, at Istra. So therefore, it just doesn't add up to me, right? And you realize last season that at an established club like FC Goa, when things were going right, it is good. But when they were struggling, he didn't find a solution to their problems. They dropped in the table. That is my concern. For me, is if you are able to in a situation where you're going good, but then suddenly you fail, that shows you how good or how bad a manager is. And to me, that will be the challenge with him this season with FC Goa in the ISL. And, you know, if he can do it with the national team. So for me, that is the challenge that he has. That is for me, that's the challenge that he has. He will have a lot of goodwill, but my concern is also the Indian football fans at the moment are very, very critical of everything. If he loses 2 matches in September, questions will directly be raised. So he is direct, and it doesn't matter. I've said it in the last 2-3 days. I said, listen, give him time. March is going to be the deciding factor. I don't see the fans giving him that time.
Okay. Hiren, do you think it's going to be, again, like in comparison to Igor's 3 matches, Hiren, do you see this being any different? I mean, do you see him having some sort of success?
देखिए, ईगो स्टिमेज भी जैसा भी कोच था, उन्होंने भी एशियन कप तो क्वालिफाई करवाया था, कैसे भी करे किया वो फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बट इवेंचुअली रिजल्ट ही आप जब आप यू कैन से कि लार्जर पिक्चर में देखोगे तो बोला जाएगा कि भाई ईगो स्टिमेज के अंदर हम वो हांगकांग वाले और वो सारे मैचेस जीत के हमने एशियन कप क्वालिफाई किया था. सो बेयर मिनिमम तो मैंने जैसे बोला कि फर्स्ट टास्क उसके ऑब्जेक्टिव वाइज अगर देखें मनोलो मार्केस के लिए, जो कि ये एफएफ ने भी आई थिंक उनको भी मेक श्योर करना चाहिए और क्लोज कोच से डायरेक्ट ये मतलब उनके साथ होने चाहिए कि भाई हम आपको अगर 3 साल का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दे रहे हैं, दिस आर दी और ऑब्जेक्टिव, अगर ये पूरे नहीं हुए तो वहां से मतलब आपको खत्म कर सकते हैं. पहला ऑब्जेक्टिव होना चाहिए आपका कि आपको एशियन कप क्वालिफायर्स खेलना है. दूसरा होना चाहिए कि एशियन कप नॉकआउट, नो ग्रुप स्टेज, नॉकआउट में क्वालिफाई करो, then you can continue, otherwise start, because only playing in the you can say ki group stage matches in Asian Cup and we are saying ki we are moving in the, you can say ki football, I don't see any point in that. And then you can if those two objectives are reached, then you can move to the third objective of next World Cup cycle qualifiers and round 3 and all of that thing. So आपको क्लियर कट अपने ऑब्जेक्टिव करने पड़ेंगे कोच के सामने. यू कांट जस्ट यू कैन से कि अभी सितंबर में रिजल्ट नहीं आएंगे तो मार्च में देख लेंगे, मार्च में अगर नहीं आया तो फिर उस टाइम पे चेक कर देंगे. इस तरह से नहीं है. आपके पास भी तो एक क्लियर कट प्लान होना चाहिए ना कि क्या आप चाहते हैं स्पोर्ट्स से. अगर वो डिलीवर करता है कंटिन्यू कीजिए, नहीं करता है बाय बाय बोल दीजिए, सिंपल सी चीज है. सो वो क्लियरिटी होना आई थिंक कोच के लिए भी एंड फेडरेशन के लिए भी जरूरी है. फैंस तो देखिए जैसे सर ने बोला कि मान लीजिए सितंबर अक्टूबर में रिजल्ट नहीं आया, फैंस का मूड तो क्या बोलते स्विंग होगा, तो इसको निकालो. But this is it's depend on the फेडरेशन कि उसकी क्या अंडरस्टैंडिंग है और किस तरह से उनका क्या विजन है, क्या किस तरह से वो नेक्स्ट 2-3 इयर्स में नेशनल टीम को कहाँ पे देखना चाहते हैं. उनके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि भाई आपको कोच को कितना टाइम देना है. अगर रिजल्ट उनके फेवर में भी नहीं आया लेकिन आपको लगता है कि भाई नहीं, दिस टीम इज यू कैन से कि मूविंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन, देयर इज अ यू कैन से कि स्लोली लिटिल बाय लिटिल इंप्रूवमेंट, देन चाहे फैंस का परसेप्शन कैसा भी हो, you need to trust that you can say कि your belief. So I think वो वाली चीज इंपॉर्टेंट रहेगी. बाकी फैंस तो भाई जीतेंगे तो तारीफ करेंगे, हारेंगे तो भाई यही अभी जो लोग बोल रहे हैं कि मनोलो मार्केस अच्छी चॉइस है, वो अगर लगातार हम यहाँ पे मैचेस हारे तो वही लोग बोलेंगे कि भाई इसको निकालो. तो फैंस का पर्सपेक्टिव तो चेंज होता रहेगा, बट इट्स डिपेंड ऑन दी फेडरेशन कि हाउ दे सी मनोलो मार्केस एंड इंडियन नेशनल टीम गोइंग टुगेदर इन नेक्स्ट 2-3 years.
Yep. And another question I had in mind was, if say he does well, you've got Asian qualifiers start well, everything's going good. Do you see Manolo doing both jobs in the long run? Will they not have to sort of say you have to come in sort of single hand? I mean, do the national team job alone going forward, or how is this going to work?
It has been sorted that his ongoing contract with FC Goa, which runs till the end of the 24-25 season. That is until when the contract is going to run, and thereafter he is a full-time head coach of the Indian national football team. So therefore, that moves happens, and he's got 2 more years with the AFF then.
Okay, so there's just 1 year where he has to juggle sort of
Yeah.
both
Hmm.
roles. Yeah, interesting, interesting. But then again, do you see him for the next 1 year? How do you think it's going to go?
हमने जब अपॉइंटमेंट उसकी हुई तब मैं और सर और मुसा जब डिस्कशन कर रहे थे तब मैंने वही पॉइंट रेज किया था और सर ने भी बोला था कि 1 साल का उनके लिए टफ चैलेंज है लेकिन अगर इसी में वो यहाँ पे एक्सपेक्टेड रिजल्ट नहीं आए कुछ भी देन शायद वो आगे फिर उसको टाइम ही नहीं मिलेगा कि वो क्या बोलते हैं कि फुल टाइम नेशनल टीम के लिए कर पाए. So I think this 1 year is a challenging for him also, at least to deliver in the March. सितंबर अक्टूबर में चलो एक आध ड्रॉ एक आध मैच हारे आई थिंक थोड़ा सा पास आउट हो आपका जो गुडविल है वो आपको बचा लेगा मेरे को लगता है. मतलब वो ऐसा नहीं होगा कि फैंस और सबको यहाँ पे फिर वो आ जाएगा. फिर भी थोड़े से आई थिंक आपके वो लोग होंगे कि जो आपको बोलेंगे कि भाई इस कोच को टाइम दीजिए. बट अगर मार्च में यहाँ पे मान लीजिए क्योंकि मार्च में जो भी आप टीम खेलने वाले हो वो रैंकिंग वाइज देखे तो हमारे लेवल की या फिर हमारे से थोड़े से अपर लेवल की ये शायद ऐसा या फिर लोअर लेवल की टीम है तो उनके सामने भी अगर आप नहीं करोगे प्रोड्यूस रिजल्ट तो सीधा लोगों का क्या कंपैरिजन आएगा कि भाई ईगो स्टीमेंस ने तो आपको एशियन कप में क्वालिफाई करवाया दिया था ये तो वो भी नहीं करवा पा रहा. सो परसेप्शन वो बन जाएगा फिर एंड उसके ऊपर फिर सब लोग यहाँ पे क्या बोलते हैं कि आपको क्रिटिसाइज करेंगे. सो दैट इज द चैलेंज फॉर हिम कि मार्च वाली जो विंडो है उसमें तो उनको रिजल्ट दिलाना पड़ेगा. यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा वो निकल सकते हैं but in that window I think he needs to deliver result.
Yeah. And again, I just want to understand, what are the expectations that we have from Manolo? Because if you're going into this first year of his role as national team coach, he's juggling both jobs. What are we expecting from him? Because even if he doesn't deliver, they can always say, I don't know. They could come and say, or Manolo himself could come and say, you know what, it's been really hard to handle both roles, and I just didn't get enough time and all of that. Again, do you see the same story? Like, because I see it can happen. It can very easily happen that he just comes and says, you know what, it was a little too much, and that's why I didn't get enough time and all of that.
If he says that, I think he'll lose the fans. To be very honest, if he says that at the end of the year, I think the March window is the key. Depending on who we're going to get in the qualifiers, you have to have, ideally 4 out of 6 points in the bag. And then if the June window doesn't go well for you, then he's in even bigger trouble. So for me, I think to try and say, listen, I didn't do this and that, and, I had this problem, that problem. As I've said now for a while with Igor Stimac, you knew what the AFF has or doesn't have, the problems of Indian football, and you have to find solutions to those problems. That is the whole challenge for Manolo now. And for me is the first thing he needs to do is try to sort out that dressing room, try to get a positive vibe, positive atmosphere back into the team, and make the players also understand that playing for India is an honor. It's something which is hugely respectable, because I feel for a lot of players, it has all now become about the money in the ISL, which is our biggest problem. It's all about the money. And Manolo has already criticized that a few times, if you remember the last 3-4 years, that it's been, when players left Hyderabad and all that stuff. I remember the Liston Colasso that he was quite happy. He said Liston Colasso development wasn't over. He should have stayed another year. But again, that Mohun Bagan offer was too good for him to turn it down. That's an interesting one. Does his language, does his tone change when he's the national team coach compared to what he says as an ISL coach? He criticized the Super Cup last year heavily. So therefore, there's a lot of these things where I feel it's very difficult for him, because you have to wear now 2 hats, right? And sometimes even when you're in an ISL press conference, you have to now think, oh shit, I can't go out and criticize the AFF fully, because you know what? I'm also an employee of the AFF.
Yep. It's gonna be a lot of fun, because now Brandon is picked over Sahal. I can imagine the sort of discussions that'll be taking place, and it's such a realistic possibility also. So it's
That's
quite
why I
fun.
said to you, when he's going to pick Nikhil Pujari, then the questions already were asked. Why are you picking? Oh, because he's your ex-Hyderabad player.
Yeah.
Mohammed,
Sana
if
Singh.
Mohammed, if Sana Singh, if Mohammed Yasir is being picked over someone, all these. And again, most probably they deserve it. Let's put it this way. They deserve to be there, right? But the point is that discussion will be there, and especially if you don't get the results. That's why the March, October windows of friendlies are interesting, the October windows will be tough. You're going to play Vietnam and Lebanon. Now you're trying to play a team from Africa and Oceania, so they're lower ranked. So, people will expect you to get a result.
Yeah.
And this is a broken squad. This is a broken team at the moment. So you have to get that to a certain level. So the important thing is also who is your captain. That will be an interesting decision, and let's see.
Yep. Hiren, yeah. On that note, captain, who do you think should be leading this Indian team, and who do you think Manolo is
I, th-
probably?
I think with Sunil Chhetri era over, I think it should be Chankte.
Okay. Interesting. Another.
If Gurpreet is in the team, and if Sandesh gets back to fitness, one of those two will be captain.
Okay.
नहीं वो तो वही बनेंगे बट आई थिंक चॉइस मेरी है अगर आप मेरे से पूछोगे कि
Hiren, I am with you. My choice would be Changte because I think Changte is at the moment the most influential player. But to me is if Gurpreet is there and if Sandesh is fit, I agree with Ishan. If I think even Sandesh will be even his more preferred captain because it's better to have a captain on the field rather than a goalkeeper. So therefore, let's wait and see what happens.
Yep. Okay. Then final word from both of you guys. Hiren, expectations for the boys. How are they going to respond? How are they going to play under Manolo Màrquez?
देखिए एक्सपेक्टेशन से ज्यादा इट्स अनसर्टेन टेरिटरी नाउ अगर ईगोस्टी मैच होते तो आपको पता ही है कि क्या होने वाला है सो नाउ इट्स अनसर्टेन टेरिटरी वर्स्ट क्या होगा ईगोस्टी मैच जैसा होगा सो वो एक आपको पता है एंड बाकी जो है आपके लिए एक होप है कि भी अच्छा भी हो सकता है सो आई थिंक इन दैट सेंस आई एम एंड आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ द फैंस इसीलिए भी मतलब आफ्टर दैट you can say हार्ट ब्रेकिंग एग्जिट फ्रॉम द वर्ल्ड कप क्वालिफायर्स आई थिंक वो एक उम्मीद अब है कि भाई चलो नया कुछ आया कुछ नया होगा कुछ अच्छा रिजल्ट आ सकता है सो उम्मीद है आई थिंक अभी and let's see how we're going to perform into the Asian Cup qualifiers. I think that's a very important thing because if you don't qualify then I think जो आप एक next step की बात कर रहे हो those next step is again further you can say down to 4-5 years. So I think that is the challenge I would say for Manolo Màrquez.
And I know you think under this rigid conservative system we can probably get better results and sort of best out of the players that we have.
I wish Manolo does what he did at Hyderabad. I think that's going to be the key thing because again he had massive problems with Hyderabad. He was able to build a team. But again, he doesn't have Juanan, Joao Victor, and Oday, those kind of characters, or a Bato Beche who won him the title. Doesn't have those characters. That's something which I think also which we haven't discussed. And for me is that's going to be something which we've not discussed. Is going to be the interesting part is that for a club side, you always have a solution with a foreigner. A club side can also sign players, right? And with the national team, you have to live with the material which is available to you. It's interesting also to see when does Manolo start talking about OCIs? Does he start talking about OCIs? Those kind of questions is because this is if he fails, those things will automatically come up at some stage. It is, and it's automatic. It's a switch. I having worked with multiple national team coaches, that's a switch. You will look at things and say, if I got this, then I could have done that. If I got this, I could have done that. So but I wish him the best. Again, let's forget the process. That is now gone. He is the national team coach.
Sir,
let's hope. बताओ.
और वो सर फुटबॉल में और किसी भी स्पोर्ट में हम नहीं बोलते कि आप जीत गए तो आपकी 100 गलती माफ और अगर आप हार गए तो आपने एक भी गलती की है मैच में तो वो भी लोग याद रखते हैं सो सेम काइंड ऑफ थिंग विद द नेशनल लीग रिजल्ट पॉजिटिव आ रहे हैं आपकी सिलेक्शन भी सही है आपका
my favorite is in the last few weeks again we've been talking a lot about Steamach but there've been two examples of Steamach like sort of behavior in a different way. One is Greg Berhalter in the US, which was a disaster. He fought with Gio Reyna and all that stuff, that feud and whatever, blah, blah, what happened. That was really Stimac-esque. But from a football perspective, Gareth Southgate was another Stimac to me. From football perspective, I think everything else off the field, he did very, very well, moderated well and all that kind of stuff. But I always say Gareth Southgate to Igor Stimac, what's the difference? Gareth Southgate has one of the most talented squads at his disposal. Stimac doesn't, right? So that saves him to a certain extent. So my point is that Manolo will now know more than anybody else that he is going to be with a squad of players which is not as talented as any of the ISL team, right? He has limited time, so that's another thing. What can you do within 5-7 days? Does he? I'm sure he understands it, but I think it'll hit him when he does his first camp with the boys in September and has got 7 days to prepare. So therefore, I wish him all the best, and I hope he succeeds, because for me, he has one aim only, and that is to qualify us for the AFC Asian Cup 2027. We can talk about everything, style, this, that, everything. It does not matter. He has to get us to the Asian Cup. And then, we can think about style and stuff and everything in the next 1.5 years after that. For the next 2.5 years, our aim has to be in Saudi Arabia in January 2027, period.
Fair enough. Anwar, just before you sign off, are you hanging out on your channel after this?
10:30 if people, 10 o'clock Indian time, 6:30 European time. Yes, I'll be doing a live tonight as well, talking about transfers. There was a big one announced today. Yeah.
Ishan and everyone interested, guys. 10 o'clock.
Thanks.
So, well, guys, thanks so much for joining, and Anwar and Niren, like always, thanks so much for doing this. It's been fun. It's been a while, so it was really nice chatting Indian football again. Everybody who's watching, please do like and share the video. Subscribe to SportsKhabri, Kiri Sairi, and Arun Foot. And we'll see you soon. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.